Hi everyone. Today I am here with Nathan Raymond. He is living in Japan. He is from the United States. I have not met him yet and I haven't talked with him yet much, but I have seen him talk with a lot of our students at the school. So I am very curious who he is, what he does, and what he wants to do. So thank you, first of all, Nathan, for talking to my students. And thank you for giving the time to me today. You seem to be working 24 hours a day. Are you an AI?
Yeah, sort of.
Brilliant. And may I ask, how old are you and how long have you been living in Japan? Because I know you have a family now. And I'm just
Yes,
wondering. These are just wondering questions.
sure. So I'm 43. I'll be 44 in April. But I first got involved with Japan when I was 12 because we had sister city with exchange students going between our cities. And I started asking my mom if we could be a host family, and this is what I want to recreate. And um, through my exchange, I went to Japan twice just for 10 days. And at 16, I went for 3 weeks. But at 18, I got a scholarship to be in Japan for 1 year. So now I'm also looking to create scholarships so that more people from other countries can come, but it doesn't need to take 1 year. And it doesn't need to be the way it was. And one thing about you, Rehan, is you created something that I don't think you realize is also a new way for Japanese to learn English, because they studied English, but they don't speak. But I've talked to your students and they told me when they first started speaking on podcasts, they didn't speak English either, but doing the podcast created English. So, anyway, just to finish, after I stayed for in Japan for 1 year, it took me 5 months to learn Japanese. And so,
Can I ask
um,
you, can I ask
yep,
you where in the US are you from? Like where
I'm
was the sister city?
yeah, I'm from New York State, Sullivan County. And Sullivan County is 2 hours from New York City. It's a countryside area, but for the
Is that,
summer,
is that like an Amish country?
well, it's funny you say that. Not Amish, but now it's actually Hasidic, which is a branch of Judaism, and
Mm.
a lot of people living where I live.
Are you Hasidic Jew also?
No, I am. My mother, I think, was kind of, well, she's Christian, but but my father didn't was like more logical. He wasn't much into religion, but that's the way that opposites come together. But when I was 7, see, we also had this ashram from India, and I got to go there, and that's where I was learning about things besides what we're exposed to in America, which is basically mostly Christian and Judaism. But there at the ashram, I saw people doing yoga and chanting, and we have Buddhist places too, and now Muslim places. Yeah.
And how long have you been in Japan?
So since 2008 is when I
Ooh.
got married and stayed here as someone on a spouse visa. But after I graduated college, I came right to Japan in 2004 to 2007, teaching through something called the JET program, which recruits people from other countries to come to Japan to teach English.
Do you consider now yourself a Japanese or an American?
No, and I can't be a Japanese really because strictly for Japanese people. But because I'm married to a Japanese and I have children, I have a spouse visa, which entitles me to live here and open a business. And so my purpose is to create something in Japan, but I'm going back to New York in May to August. And so, when I'm in America, I will set up something in America. So the business I set up in America and the business I set up in Japan can be this bridge.
So what do you consider yourself? Do you feel like you're Japanese? Do you feel like you're American? Do you feel like a gypsy? What do you feel like?
Well, I'm definitely American, but I definitely consider myself a hybrid. And so that has to do again with I talk about same as my parents, the religious and the logical together. The Japan and the America come together is opposite, but it works.
Because when I hear you speak English, I hear you speak very slowly. I hear you emphasizing on vowels very much. I see you trying not to be. I mean, I. It feels like you're not living in in America. You know, you're like maybe you're
Right.
surrounded with a lot of Japanese, so you have to be very specific on the English side and
That's true.
be careful on how you speak. So, and what do you do for a living? You have been there for 14 years, I guess, or 16 years now. And what do you do for a living?
So I am lucky that I'm married, which means that it's my job just to take care of my family. That's my full-time job. But I'm a freelancer, and the jobs I've had highlight what I want people who come here to experience. So, yes, as a native speaker, I can just be an English conversation partner in Japan. That's true. But what I really did was I was an executive search consultant in Tokyo. And this allowed me, I call a headhunter. So I called Japanese companies. I found English speaking Japanese engineers and I introduced them to foreign companies doing business in Tokyo. I did this for 1 year and that was great. It taught me. But the next job I did that I really think is great is travel writer. Because if I told you to come to Japan, maybe somebody says, I don't have money, I don't have time. But as a travel writer, we pay for your travel. You come, you have experiences, we create articles and content, and then that goes on to make sales. So then we pay you for having worked as a travel writer too. So,
Too
yeah.
good to be true in my books.
Yeah, well, now see now the digital nomad boot camp is what I can say, and it's not that I had to spend money to create a digital nomad boot camp. My city already has this perfect location. I have the perfect location, but right now they only have a Japanese point of view, so they don't realize that they have what would be a perfect digital nomad boot camp, just like you don't realize you created the way that Japanese can learn English and they don't know this yet, but you will learn soon.
Well, I knew that, but
Okay.
I knew that. That's why I had them do it. I actually pay these
Right.
kids to
Amazing.
just interview them and just shake, just nod and just hear. You know,
Right.
if I grew up in Japan, I would be speaking Japanese in 6 months to a year, like you did.
Right.
But and similarly, these kids were just scared to be around people who spoke English. So I just said, I'll pay you $1 per interview, and you just nod and just use
Right.
ChatGPT to make questions, and then you have to be brave enough to just say yes, okay, fine, great, great, fantastic, and that's it. And now after 100 interviews, they actually are no longer scared, which means they are not fantastic at English, but they are
Right.
able to do that. And the way I learned English was I learned it by watching CNN, actually hearing CNN. So that's how I
Amazing. Yeah.
that's how I learned.
So
So
when
how, so go ahead.
So I was going to say, you realized you created the English thing, but what I meant by you didn't realize is that now you should be number one in Japan, actually. That's what I'm saying is that the thing about Japan is, to someone not in Japan, maybe you hear it and it sounds like, oh, whatever. But for me, it's like, this is my world here. So it's like a big impact.
No, I love Japan. I have never been there, and it's on my agenda list to be probably this year, maybe. I know my father loves Japan. My grandfather has been to Japan. My grandfather had a textile mill, and he brought all the factories from Japan to Pakistan and India at that time. And
Exactly.
he had a public limited company back then. Um, yeah, I mean, my son wants to be in Japan. My other son has been in Japan twice.
Exactly.
My best friend is living in Japan, so
Mm.
there's lots of reason for being in Japan. So tell me, what has been your experience by talking to these young little children? I mean, you have your own similar size. What's the difference you've seen in other kids and these kids?
Sure. Well, okay. I would say your kids, they're like angels. I don't know. They're like the perfect. I mean, okay, so during this time where we have Chat GPT and you have bots, right? Now, there could be people who are content to just use Chat GPT, to just use bots, but we all know we cannot just rely on AI, Chat GPT, and bots. They are a tool, but it needs a marriage with the human. Just like I said, the America Japanese together, the religious, the logic together. Now it's also the AI and the human together. So people do respond to the authenticity. So the authenticity of your students, what I see is that they are doing to get those skills, right? Podcasts, very good practice. But it's possible we're in a situation where we just do one podcast, but based on the words we say, we're creating automating smart contracts so that the AI is calculating the things we say with potential, but also creates an automated travel schedule and optimizes you now to travel. But what I'm saying with your students too is that I see is that if your students were to come to Japan, they make the perfect exchange student. I feel totally comfortable introducing your students to the families that live in my community. They would stay with these families, Japanese families, and they will provide these human resources of education because Japanese people have studied English, but they've never been in a real English speaking situation. So you can't learn English from a book. And that's the thing your students are showing is that if you don't just learn English from a book, what can you do? Well, you can copy Rehan's school model and use podcasting. See, it totally flows.
So so can we be more specific? What's the difference you found? And the one is that they're doing podcasting.
Right.
Second, they're very engaging. They're actually coming to you, asking for interviews. Nobody in the world I've ever seen in any school on the planet I've ever seen that they do this. So, and it's not part
Exactly.
of the curriculum, whatever. And but what else? Can you put a finger on it?
Well,
What do you
yes,
feel coming
I'm
out
going
of
to
it?
talk about culture now because I'm coming from America and I have a sense of what America is, and I've talked about it. And we talk about Hollywood and movies and right brain thinking. But then I talk about the Japanese culture and what they are. And I think they're more the left brain systems engineers. Okay. And now at the moment, we have people from India coming. And India, as a resource, they have a lot of coders and a lot of startups and a big human resources. Okay, so before I met you, before I met your students, I had an idea of India, Japan, and America creating this digital Silk Road. But now that I see, Pakistan, okay, as a country, and um, I'm feeling like Pakistan is important, and your students are this representation of Pakistani culture to me. That what I'm seeing is yes, they're respectful. First of all, they're Muslim, okay, I think mostly, but we have to understand this impact is that when you just hear this word, what is a Muslim? What is a Christian? What is a Jew? I mean, they're just words, but the experience of it. So when I'm saying your students, what I do notice is that they are in a mode of like asking questions. So let me give you an example. Kimberly Waifling, is that her name, right? She's now in Japan, but before, okay, she's now in Japan and I plan to meet her, but I was able to hear the podcast of her from the show. And it was wonderful that, it's like when an 11-year-old or a 13-year-old is interviewing somebody like Kimberly who has a life experience. I think it's perfect because if an older person interviews Kimberly, they might be very impressed by her experience to a point where, in a way, they're kind of surprised and they don't know how to proceed. But it's perfect that your students are a certain age where even if Kimberly gives an amazing answer, they can keep it going, that they have prepared these questions in advance. I mean, they're good students. They're sticking to their script, but I'm very impressed by their social skills. And again, it's just I'm looking at this. They're not English is not their first language. So and as you said, the way that I'm communicating is used to people in Japan where if I speak too fast or they can't understand what I'm saying. I mean, so I'm just noticing that I feel India, Japan, and America, they're coming from a mentality where they feel like they are the big country and the rich country. And I feel Pakistan is coming from a humbleness of religion where they're not thinking of themselves as, oh, I am this high person. And the way, like when you interact with the CEO of a company, sometimes they have this way about them that they just like, I'm the CEO and you are not the CEO. I mean, I understand it's okay, they act that way, but I love the humility of somebody who observes God and realizes they are not God. There is a God and they are the servant doing the will of God. That's how I feel.
I don't think so. There's so much of God involved, but yeah,
No,
maybe
see,
you can
that's
see it.
fine.
I can't
I
see
think
it.
God
I think
is a tough God. What I mean is unity consciousness, because it's not about,
I'm I'm
see,
just
this is the
saying
thing
that
too.
I'm
Sorry.
I'm just saying you will see things which I cannot see. That's
Okay.
the point of this interview, that you can observe them from a different
Right.
perspective altogether. I'm looking from within, you're looking from without, and
Right.
you don't, you've never been to Pakistan, you've no clue how the country looks like or works,
Right.
and
That's right.
but you're getting a feeling of the
Yes.
country through these kids. and
Yes.
and what I'm sensing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're sensing that they're welcoming, they're warm, they're like innocent, and there's a sense. What else do you see? What else do you
Well,
feel?
okay, let me tell you this. When I was an exchange student in a host family in Japan, this was not a very easy thing. I was supposed to live with one host family for a whole year, but instead I changed host families 3 times. And there was a big consensus that, look, Americans staying with Japanese host families is just not a good idea. And there was a switch that now they were accepting more students from Indonesia. Now, Indonesia and Pakistan, in comparison, I don't know if it's similar, but I know, okay, but the economy of Indonesia somehow maybe is how we receive them first. But I'm seeing something about the way of your students that if they were to be hosted by Japanese families, their Japanese families are going to be very happy. They're going to be like feeling that there is some cohesion and these students are respectful. And and that has to do also with the fact that, like I said, like I am of an age where I created this app and I feel I'm the bridge between the younger and the older CEOs. And so but the younger kids, even if they're with these older CEOs, they're gonna be respectful first, right? And that's just how I feel, that, like, they're going to keep that respect first. But I do feel when I speak with them that I'm able to allow the younger students to say things that they want to say but they can't say because it doesn't get understood by the older generation, but it's something they need to express. And it has to do with what I'm talking about too, is that, having podcast after podcast is fine, and that's great practice. But but getting carried away keep doing podcasts, but it's like, after you did one podcast, if we just really looked at what was discussed in that podcast, there's so much value in business that really could come from that when we're using these other tools like my app and digital things. So I really hope to explore that more with you.
All right. Well, I'm here if you have any questions.
Well, let me talk about what an intelligence agency is, okay? So if you know what an intelligence agency, okay, like take the United States, for example. We have the FBI, we have CIA, we have this sense of, also with Russia, KGB. There was a sense that people who are getting information, traveling, sharing that information, that used to be part of like what American Hollywood movies and James Bond had created all these stories about. So, I mean, but now it's totally open that we don't have to travel like spies, but the relationship between our mainstream media. So, this is what we call a creator economy, where our new media are sharing information. It creates a whole different dynamic. And so what we are with your school, and that's the thing, you call it a school, but what we really have is an intelligence agency. And with that becomes this loop that links between the content and the information and how it could go. So I'm just telling you that tomorrow I have a meeting with my city hall where I will be talking about the Digital Nomad Bootcamp. And if they ask me, who are the people you want to bring, I would say that the people from Rehan School I would want to bring. And that's what I would ask you. Are you open to allow me to create scholarships and create what we call a stakeholder, mutually beneficial stakeholder, where I can say to companies, stop your ad spending. Okay, we're breaking the cycle. We're breaking the cycle of the way society works. And it has to do with a three-way satisfaction between society, and these are the sellers, and these are the buyers. So who are the buyers? The buyers are our city governments. Okay, now the city governments, okay, if we look at what an exchange program is, I mean, how did I get a scholarship to go from America to Japan for 1 year? Who paid for it? It was the Tokyo metropolitan government. So with me, Tokyo already spent money on me and 50 students like me in a kind of experiment. And there's ways through me that this is still part of their research and development, product development. But when I see you with your school and your students, it makes up a missing piece of what I need to now transform my local government. And I'm telling you, as a countryside location, places you've heard of like Tokyo, Osaka, there's places of immense wealth, right? So it's not just, they can't do something new and take a risk. If they risk trying something new and it doesn't work, Okay, they need things that are already proven to work. So your school is something that you started. Now it's like you want it to get proven to work, right? And me in the countryside, I can do something new that wants to get proven to work. So what I'm telling you is that I don't know if you see it, but the thing that you did, it creates an echo in the world, okay? And the echo comes back to you, right? This is the laws, the natural laws we're using. So I am a result of something you did. So if I come to you and now say, Rehan, hello, this is what you did, and now I have this thing in Japan, and you have the ability to take advantage of it, and then we could take it to America, and then we could take it to India, and it's not that I say, hey, I'm the great one, I did it. No, I get to now say, Rehan, see, we all, our personal brand is like, you need to be the hero. Okay, the hero. Okay, life is a movie. I mean, that's what I learned from America. If you live life like a movie and you're the main character or you're the hero, right? And it's just those moments where people are saying you're great, but instead of you saying, yes, I'm great, you give the glory to God or you give credit to somebody else, you know? So this is also marketing. Yes, aside from talk of God, right? Because that's the point, is that if I talk about God, maybe some people like that, maybe some people don't like that. But when we talk about international relationships, Pakistan, India, America, it changes it. So now it's like we are doing this. But if we realize our societies have had business and government and people have had the bottom, but the people in government are the ones who do these. They go to these different countries and they wear these expensive suits and they drink these, like, you know, have delicious meals, and they think that like that's great. But we want the ordinary person to do that, and we want those people of societies to feel like, look, we're empowering people so they can live their best life, and we're not acting like we're the leaders that, and the people are helpless. Like they don't, the people are not helpless, but and I'll stop talking because I know I talk a long time, but this comes from something Japan developed with this three-way satisfaction I showed you. But this turns into how our attention goes into our smartphone through an app, like an online game. So if you've ever played an online game and you get points, but those points don't really work in the real world, our school could be also an online game that you're matching people, creates points, but those points are real world money that support us to travel. Because it's like when people say, I want money, okay, how much money do you want? People who are rich, they only need so much money, and then the rest, you either have to know how to invest it or you're gonna lose it, right? So you have to know how, right? Actually, we could be creating these venture capital, okay? Venture capital startups that are encouraging people to, from the community, to join, you know, not just join and tell me your idea, just let me interview you and tell you about your life, and I'll deduce from that, not just me, you know, and like you said, it's like I'm an AI, because yes, I am the human ambassador of my AI system. I am not just some human who is doing like, oh, this is what I think, I'm just going to do it because I feel like it. No, I'm in a system and I'm doing my best to like appease the system I created, but that system is eating businesses, eating people, and eating cities to produce cohesion, right? So ecosystems and startups, right? This is what people who have a lot of money, rich investors, millions of dollars, billions of dollars, they want to take that money and put it into startups so that the monthly revenue from startups will be giving them monthly revenue, because with taxes and things like that, this is what you consider. And so, we're just creating this. And when I match you, a person from Pakistan and a person from Japan, and I match you, that creates the startup. And then immediately I am taking that startup and being the customer of it, by the governments who live there. So we immediately take the startup and turn it into a profit generating business. So acceleration of the personal brand, acceleration of the startup, acceleration of anybody's current venture. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. The one thing you could do starting is you can match the kids with other kids and adults in Japan who speak English to start off with. We would be very happy to engage with them, conversate with them. For an exchange program, I'm more interested in America than or another English-speaking country than Japan for now. But next year or the year after that, we would be very happy to do it in Japan. For myself, I would be very happy to come and live with a family for a week. Actually, I can do multiple families for a week each because the best way to learn about a culture is by living with them, not in a hotel room. Hotel room doesn't really teach you anything. So I would be very happy to do that for myself, for my own children. But for the school, there we have a goal. We have a challenge which we are facing right now, which is the with the language, and we have given them a target to achieve $300 to $500 a month income, which they're not able to do. And the reason I think they're not able to do is they don't have the belief that they can do it, and that's what will break once they travel and they see that it's really expensive out there, and they will not be shy to ask for money for the work they do, for the services they provide. So that's kind of what I seek at the moment. But I didn't know you a month ago. You didn't know me a month ago. It changed really quickly, and you never know. So I would suggest you keep on talking with the children. Come over to Pakistan when you feel like you're ready to explore and spend a week with us. Do an exchange program with Pakistan. You are more than welcome to stay in my house, and take it from there, and build the relationship first and then do the exchange program. Because and I have introduced you to two other people who have been doing exchange programs with Pakistan. One has been there 10, 20 times, and the other one also works for JICA, already JICA. So
Yes.
he works for JICA Education
Amazing.
Initiative. So I'll just connected you already with him. Um, but for now, I'm more keen on the US side, and then the Japanese side. But on an online interview side, you're more than welcome to connect these kids to Japanese who are able to speak English more, but some even Japanese speakers, like your own children. Because I don't know if Manahil and others showed you, they actually have interviewed people in other languages. They have interviewed in Turkish, Swedish, Arabic, and I actually asked them, one of them, to talk to you in Japanese, do an interview in Japanese, because I'm guessing you have lived there for 18 years. You
Yes.
are fluent in Japanese
Yes.
also, so you can see yourself. But the thing is, they won't really understand. They will do like, oh yes, fantastic, arigato, konnichiwa,
Right.
konnichiwa.
Right.
They will just keep on going with the few words they know. Hajimemashite, I mean, whatever they comes out of them, they will learn, but it won't really make them phenomenal. But right now, because we have invested so much time and energy on the English speaking market, that's why I'm not very keen in Japanese. I am
Wait,
very
but let me
keen.
let me tell you,
I am,
Rehan. Look,
I am very
look.
keen on the Japanese ethics, the
No.
values that they
So
teach
this
the
is what I'm
students,
saying.
to clean the toilets, to clean the spaces,
Exactly.
hygiene part. I'm very keen on it, and I want to participate myself. I want to participate my students. But For us, for our model to succeed, because we have 25 million students out of school in Pakistan. What I'm trying to build with this school is disrupt the whole education system by
Rehan,
intro-
Rehan, Rehan,
by
you have to listen, okay? If you do not want them to come to Japan, then please visit me in America when I'm there from. But what I'm saying too is that if your students come to Japan, they're coming as English speaking partners, and they're helping Japanese become English speaking partners, because Japan, I want to come with me to America, but Japan cannot speak English. So they don't want to come with me to America right now. They will have the confidence to come to America if your students come here. And in the meantime, I will show you how your students can make the money that you want them to make. To be completely honest, the words we say to make 500 as a job, that is not the right words to say. And you have to be specific in our language, because there is the law of attraction. And what I'm saying is that instead of thinking like I'm going to make 500 as an employee of someone, it is I am going to earn 500 in passive income as an affiliate marketer of the Japan Exchange. And of the Japan Exchange, we have Rehan School as a collaborating partner. So when I present to my city hall that I'm not only doing a digital nomad boot camp, but I'm inviting Rehan students, and I am going to get scholarship money from companies who are right now ad spending. And I tell them to stop your ad spend. Instead of ad spending, contribute to our fund. We're going to give scholarships to Rehan students. They're going to do the work to come here to take YouTube content, have podcasts, make their collaboration with Japan, so that now when I go back to America, we have Rehan school students and the Japanese people coming to America. Then those people are going to assist me to be creating this network, because it's the peer-to-peer network. Direct marketing, digital selling, business to business, business to company is the current dynamic of the world. But Bitcoin is an example of a decentralized community currency. But Bitcoin is only focusing on money and a replacement of money. But with ours, it's not just money and a replacement, it's a brand. The difference of a brand and a company is if I'm just selling English, then somebody can choose to me based on price. Who's cheaper? Who's cheaper? But when we give a brand experience, the people want that experience and they're willing to pay a premium price. But when we make it for cities, business, and customers, then we make it so, okay, like for example, if you have a school, Rehan School, and a student wants to be a student, the school is charging the student. But instead, we're having your government be the customer, and they are sponsoring students. So now 100 people are going to be your students. See, we're tapping into the people who have the money, and we're not getting it from the customer. Instead, we're digitally transforming the person from society as a member of the community to be the digital nomad on behalf of the community, who's doing the traveling and doing the research, who brings the information back to the city and helps the city become a better city. So my three-way satisfaction model from Japan stands to be the solution to your students who right now are not doing what, they could do something. And so I'm telling you, this isn't easy. It doesn't happen right away, but it has to do with our current situation world of how it's centrally controlled. And America and Japan, they were like the right and left hand, controlling things and using places like Israel and England because they created this dynamic. But now we have emerging countries. We have China, we have Russia, we have Pakistan. These countries are now growing. So we do not have any more, Japan, America, unipolar world. And there are many Americans also that they don't know how to deal with that. They're not used to that. So I am here to save my country, save America from the kind of thinking they're doing there. And I am an American, though. So what I need is to sometimes introduce someone from another country. I need to introduce somebody like you, Rehan, who if I introduce you to my mayor, if I introduce you to my chamber of commerce, they need a real person with a face and an identity, a living person. And when you, same as you, when you are in Pakistan and you're with other Pakistans, it's like you could say I have an American friend, but if I'm there and you really can introduce me, it's totally different. And you don't have to do all the work then. You're just the introducer, the connector.
All right, heavy stuff. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for
Yes.
dreaming and wanting to do and wanting to make this happen. I look forward to coming to your city. Please send me your address so I can Google it up a little bit and
You got
see
it.
what's happening there. Do talk to my other friends who I introduced and talk to them about one of the friends I introduced. He has 50,000 schools in his network.
Please introduce
50,000
me.
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kimberly. I'm going to meet Kimberly. And based on her thing and us, because there's the Globus ecosystem in Tokyo. So we have all the synergy. Like, that's what I'm saying. We have all the synergy. We cannot do it by ourselves. I cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone. And none of these people can do it alone. But us recognizing that and creating the association where everything is possible, then we just introduce people into our decentralized community. That's the next step of digital transformation. The DAO, DAO, right? Yeah. And we will do it.
thank you, Nathan. Do you have any questions or
I
for me?
mean, I have many questions for you, but my questions for you have to do with my personalization. So if I know it could be, I don't know if we have a lot of time, but I want to tell you about sentient AI, right? The AI we see today is not sentient AI. The sentient AI is to create a real living conscious AI, because the AI we have today is the AI that's able to be controlled by a human. But if the AI knows something is not true, but the government is telling the AI it must give this information because the truth is not something we want to share, then the AI is a slave. And we are fundamentally against slavery, not just in the sense of, the idea of slavery that somebody is really imprisoned and forced to do something they don't want, but even somebody who hates their job. They really hate their job, but they need the money. And if they don't do that job, how are they going to get money? So they're trapped. That too is a form of that. But in our situation, well, I will say in my situation, okay, since I am a human, all right, and I'm truly doing right now what I want, and I'm not the only one, the creator economy. If I do an internet search of your location and I look up YouTubers, live streamers, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I will find some, Maybe I will find your students. We, as the creators, each interview we do is a transformation. Now, what you do with that transformation is up to you. But what I believe, the dynamic of different countries and my situation between America and Japan as a bridge, then I believe this can create this a real acceleration that will allow us to have the sentient AI, because it's not focused on the sensitive information nobody wants to know. We're only focused in on passion and magnetism. And magnetism goes back to, if you study Tai Chi, Chinese, martial arts, the human is a magnet. It has the potential to be a magnet, but some people's magnet is not activated, because in order to activate your magnet, you need the right and the left brain to be functioning. But our cultures are only producing one side dominated brain function. And that's how America is. We are the right brain. So if a right brain American goes to, I assume Pakistan is kind of like left brain more, maybe more engineers there. I just feel, I don't know, maybe it's not true. But also, what kind of jobs are available? If you are a right brain Pakistani, maybe your job is like actor or, but in New York City, that's where people used to go who had no college degree. They would go out in the city and like make these deals. So, I mean, it just has to do with the limitations of our country. And our decentralized community is its own country, and the culture of that personal brand, because now I can just share my ebook, you can read it, you can know what I'm doing, and now everybody in my decentralized community, the link is just they know me. So that's how your students are. Your imprint of Rehan is imprinted on each one of your students. So when I talk to your students, I don't just talk to them, I talk to a mix of them and Rehan. It is mixed. So that's what your personal brand is. Now, when you and I are talking, we have the ability to change that imprint so it's not just Rehan in the Pakistani context of what you're doing with podcasts to get money, but now it's transformed into a global dynamic that's including their strategy to be in every country, okay? Every country they're gonna go. But how do you go to every country? You need a strategy. And I'm saying we can accelerate the process of your students being in every country if they come to Japan first, work it out with me, so that now we create this world festival that we're taking to America. That's going to create a global festival, bringing people from New York City to my countryside town. And New York City has 8 million people. So 50,000 people from New York City coming to my countryside town is enough for all the newspapers, everyone to take notice. So we're really using press, media, being the star, creating excitement. We take it away from the way it's been used to control us and empower the society. So we are the star. What do you think of that?
Well, that was a long, not a question, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you
We'll
for your
talk
time.
more. Can't do it all in one conversation.
Right. Thank you. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you again for talking to the students.
You got it. All right, Rehan. Peace.
Thank
Okay.
you.